Once a Paraguayan friend told me, Paraguay is a country where simple things are difficult and difficult things are easy. And if there's one aspect of this country that reminds me of this in a very evident way, it's when it comes to open a bank account and banking more in general. Hi, I'm Alessandro from Paraguay Pathways, and in this video I'll explain to you exactly how to open a bank account in Paraguay. Let's start by saying that in Paraguay, banking secrecy is well kept within the constitution. So even the parliament and the tax authorities of Paraguay cannot access customers' banking information as confirmed by Law 7066 of 2023 once again. So, on the one hand, this means that you have the right to all the privacy you want regarding your capital here, but on the other hand, it also means that the country has attracted a lot of people in the past who use Paraguayan banks to launder or hide dirty capitals. After a series of high-profile money laundering cases, Paraguayan banks have become extremely insistent when it comes to opening a bank account. So if you think that it's just enough to walk into a local branch, say hi, show them your gringo and say, hey, I want to open a bank account, I'm sorry to say, actually this is not the case. Before opening any type of account, you need to go through the residency process. Now, the only exception is if you buy a company that already exists and already has a bank account, but you still cannot be the administrator of the company without having residency, and in particular having the cédula, which is the identity card. So the way you decide to obtain this residency makes a big difference in results. If you opt for temporary residency, for instance, opening an account becomes very difficult, especially a good one. Once you get the identity card, you can just go to the bank and they'll only give you the so-called cuenta mínima or cuenta básica. This is a savings account where you can just deposit a maximum of 3 times the minimum wage per month, which it roughly equals to $1,100 a month today. And you usually get a debit card, but be careful with transfers from abroad because it's very difficult to move money from abroad to this account and from this account to any other country. And even if you manage to, you will have to be ready to take the bank's questions and justify all the transactions for origin of funds and KYC. And once 6 months have passed with the basic account, you can switch to a more complete one. But still, you would have some limits, up to 10K in deposits per month. You can maybe accept small transfers from abroad, again with all the paperwork, and you can also request credit cards, loans, and mortgages. In this case, however, you need to show that you have a RUC or any sort of Paraguayan sourced income. Otherwise, you will not be able to make the switch. The account is usually available in both euros and dollars, in some cases also in British pounds, with very small differences between one bank and the other in terms of treatment. We will get to the most important banks at the end of the video, but say that in a normal scenario, it means that it takes 3.5 months just to open a basic account, because that's the time to get a cédula with temporary residency. Then, to get a better account, it's another 6 months, and then pretty much another 6 months to get an account with no limits. So let's move on to those who apply for residency by investment, immediately obtaining permanent residency and getting the paperwork done faster. When the SUACE approves your business plan, qualifying you as a significant investor for the country, it must obviously put you in a position to carry out the business plan that you have presented, and so to open a bank account and move the funds. It's not necessary to build an actual business. It's also fine to simply buy land or real estate, even for personal use, and we've had probably dozens, if not hundreds, of clients who chose this path without investing to start a real business, but just to buy long-term assets. The important thing is to show that these capitals will enter the local economy in one form or the other. Since the country is interested in attracting capital, first of all, with investment residency, the residency card and the ID card arrive much faster than with temporary residency. We are usually talking about 25 days from the date of application till you have both cards. Now, once you get the ID card, it becomes immediately possible to apply for the bank account at the Banco Nacional del Fomento and move all the necessary amount of money to carry out your business plan. What is the Banco Nacional del Fomento? It is the official government bank of Paraguay, not to be confused with the central bank, so it's pretty much impossible for it to go bankrupt. You will still need to show the origin of your funds when you move them in, to show that they're not laundered, that they're not coming from illegal activities, but these controls are perfectly reasonable, and of course, they're not gonna ask you to go crazy and start looking for documents from 2002, nothing of that sort. So once you pass the control, you can move even $1, $10, $100 million without any sort of problem. Theoretically, it's also possible to obtain first temporary residency, and then if you realize that you made a mistake and you need to move capital to the country, you can still apply for the approval of an investment project by SUACE, and then you will be able to proceed in all tranquility with the opening of a bank account. The only alternative to this, which can be tried, but it's definitely a less effective solution, is to buy an existing company that already has a bank account. There are forms of businesses here in Paraguay, especially the SA, Sociedad Anónima, that can be used to manage family assets comfortably, and they act pretty much half as a trust, half as a company. But you need to evaluate the pros and cons of this solution, because a company that does not have a good banking history or is always operated with very small capitals can have the same limitations when it comes to banking that you would have with your personal residency. And it's also very important to check with the public accountant that this company has no debts and has not been prosecuted for illegal activities or has no problems of sort. So my advice is this: if you're planning to move to Paraguay and buy a house in the country or start a new life here, start a business here, the best thing for you is to go for residency by investment. If you're interested about all the tax benefits you can get by moving your residency here, the typical case of digital nomads and online entrepreneurs, or you just want to use your residency in Paraguay as a plan B, but without relocating on the spot, then it's okay to go for temporary residency, because probably you're a person that's not so interested in having a local bank account to move large sums of money. So that is the distinction I always make. Let's move on to the most well-known banks in the country and their characteristics. Let's start with the Banco Nacional del Fomento, which is the one I already mentioned, and it's the official government's bank. The objective of Banco Nacional del Fomento is not to operate for profit, but to stimulate the country's economic growth. So for this reason, it has a series of programs dedicated to loans to companies operating in so-called strategic sectors, loan to small and medium-sized enterprises, and it's also an extremely solid bank because it's directly linked to the country's risk of default. Here you can open both accounts in Guarani and dollars. It's hard to open one in euros, and the costs of receiving and sending foreign currency depend on the amount that you're sending or receiving from the counterpart bank. I leave you the table here in case you want to take a screenshot. Moving on to private banks, the most famous one and the biggest one is definitely Itaú. It's a Brazilian bank that operates a local branch here in Paraguay and is known because those who have an Itaú card manage to get a lot of discounts in restaurants, cinemas, and all sorts of local activities. In general, they are also stricter when it comes to selecting their clients compared to other banks, so it's a very solid institution with concrete day-to-day advantages. It is also the first Paraguayan bank that recently started making its cards compatible with Google Pay, and probably Apple Pay will be next. With Itaú, you can send and receive money from abroad, but you pay $22 for each SWIFT transfer operation that you are receiving or sending. Then we have the bank of the moment, the very famous Bueno, which is practically the only fintech startup operating here in Paraguay. The idea is to simplify all processes, opening the account online and using the app to manage operations and cards, just like it's done with international brands like Revolut or M26. The big difference in this case is that you cannot receive transfers from abroad, so the only way to recharge your account as of today would be to withdraw the cash and deposit it into your account personally. Which, I mean, it's kind of inconvenient. Now, third best known bank is Atlas Vision, definitely, which has many branches and it's known for being a very serious bank with a very efficient internet banking platform. There is a reason why these and all other private banks that are smaller than Itaú are not much loved by foreigners. And that is the fact that receiving or sending currency in dollars or euros is very expensive. In the case of Atlas Vision, for instance, we're talking about $50 to send an instant transfer, $40 to send it with a 1-day waiting period, and $31 to send it with a 2-day waiting period before the counterparty receives it. And to receive dollar transfers, you pay $33 per operation, and to receive one in euros, you would pay 33 euros. Other than that, the coverage of the government on banking funds is really, really low. Funds are insured in case of insolvency only up to 75 times the minimum wage. As of today, we're talking like about $25,000. And that's why choosing a solid bank is extremely important, and that's especially the case when it comes to moving large sums of money. And that's why I normally suggest using either Banco Nacional del Fomento or at most Itaú. In any case, remember that Paraguay does not place any sort of limits to its citizens and residents when it comes to operating offshore accounts. So my suggestion is just to keep here a rainy day fund, but to keep here part, not all your savings, because there are definitely simple legislations where you can open a bank account abroad as a foreigner, and the deposit insurance is also way higher, so Singapore for instance. I hope the video has helped you find the information you were looking for, and if so, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to continue discovering everything there is to know about the benefits of becoming a resident of the free country of Paraguay. From Asuncion today, it's everything. See you in Paraguay.